the United States of America would not exist today. Abraham Lincoln, America's moral hero. The man whose courage and brilliant strategy saved the nation from the 12th of February, 1809, in a one-room cabin in rural Kentucky, a frontier state of America. His family were farmers, and although Lincoln quickly established himself as a charismatic speaker and talented politician, increasingly ambitious, he had become a successful local politician, and the ambitious young Lincoln was proving difficult to ignore. Should it be a slave state or not? Small-scale wheat farmers did not want to compete with slaves working for their masters. In the South, it was another commodity that was key to the slave issue: cotton.
The predicament that he faced was that slavery was an enactment of the states where it was legalized.
A wealthy and well-connected young woman called Mary Ann Todd.
Her family was well-established, well-to-do, slave-holding.
Lincoln moved onto the national stage, becoming a congressman for his district of Illinois. It was a tense time in America. As his support grew, Abraham Lincoln decided to run for the presidency. After a long campaign, and with the opposition in disarray, he was successfully elected. In April 1861, the Confederates fired the first shot at the fort. This started the bloodiest war in American history. Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation was made public in September 1862. It announced that from the beginning of the next year, all slaves in any state still in rebellion shall be then, thenceforward and forever, free. It did not apply to the border states, and it was not obeyed by the rebels, but it succeeded in doing what Lincoln had intended it to do. It reinforced the will of the Union Army to work for land. Nothing would make him enjoy it. Tall, gangly, and ferociously intelligent, he was the first of his family to read, and his preference for books over manual labor made him stand out. Even as a child, Abraham Lincoln was different to his friends. But for a man who reached such lofty heights, his early life was poor and brutal. Lincoln's passion for reading continued into his adult life. Studying the great writers of the day, his ideas about fairness were becoming increasingly developed. America was changing, expanding day by day, and Lincoln wanted to be part of it. By 1837, he had studied enough to pass the bar examination. He had decided to become a lawyer. He had become a successful local politician, and the ambitious young Lincoln was proving difficult to ignore. Should it be a slave state or not? Small-scale wheat farmers did not want to compete with slaves working for their masters. In the South, it was another commodity that was key to the slave issue: cotton. In 1858, Abraham Lincoln decided to run for the United States Senate. At the beginning of the campaign, he made a speech that inflamed the nation. Lincoln, too, had felt like a slave, having been forced to pay the realities of slavery.
What he did see in New Orleans was probably the most horrific aspect of slavery.
He had said over and over again that he was not going to allow slavery to expand into the territory. From the standpoint of America,
did not believe him. They were convinced that he would use his powers to destroy their way of life.
Abraham Lincoln was very concerned that the war was not going well.
He insisted from his inaugural address onwards that the war was about reunion.